Listen to me, you can't become what you've never seen. You can't dream about what you don't even know exists. That's why so many people stay stuck, not because they don't have potential, not because they don't have drive, but because they've never been exposed to what's possible. You've got talent, you've got ambition, but if all you've ever seen is struggle, all you'll ever believe in is survival. And that's the trap so many fall into. You can't build a mansion in your mind if all you've ever seen are broken walls. See, when you grow up only seeing pain, only hearing limitations, only watching people give up when it gets hard, that becomes your blueprint. You start to believe that's normal. You start thinking struggle is the end of the story, not the setup for success. But the truth is, the moment you see something different, the moment you get a glimpse of what's possible, everything changes. That's why exposure is powerful. It opens your eyes to another level of life. It makes you realize, wait, there's more out there for me. I remember talking to a group of young people one day, and one of them said, "I never thought I could go to college. Nobody in my family ever did." And that hit me. It wasn't that the kid didn't want to learn, he just didn't see it happening. He never saw anyone walk across that stage, never saw anyone with that degree hanging on the wall. See, it's not about intelligence, it's about imagination, and imagination is built on exposure. You can't imagine flying if you've never seen a plane. You can't dream about freedom if you've only known cages. You can't desire greatness if all you've seen is average. That's why you've got to put yourself in rooms that stretch you. Go to places that make you uncomfortable. Talk to people who intimidate you not because they're better, but because they're where you want to be. Because every time you step into a higher environment, you expose yourself to a new possibility, and once your mind expands, it can never shrink back. That's the danger of exposure. Once you've seen better, you can't unsee it. Once you've tasted excellence, average doesn't satisfy you anymore. So, if you're still surrounded by the same noise, the same negativity, the same limits, you've got to break out. Stop waiting for someone to bring exposure to you. Go find it. Read books that challenge you. Watch people who have done what you dream of doing. Ask questions even if you feel small, because every bit of exposure adds a new piece to your vision. And the clearer the vision, the stronger the motivation. When I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of examples of success. But the first time I saw someone who looked like me, who came from what I came from, doing something extraordinary, that lit a fire in me. It told me if he can do it, I can do it too. That's what exposure does. It doesn't just show you what's out there. It gives you permission to believe it's possible for you. So, don't let your lack of exposure limit your expectations. Don't let what you've seen define what you can be. Because the world is bigger than your block, your school, your situation. You've just got to see it for yourself. Once you open your eyes to what's possible, there's no going back. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, and that's when the real change begins. Let me tell you something, your environment is teaching you every single day. Whether you realize it or not, your surroundings are shaping your mindset, your habits, your energy, your expectations. Education doesn't just happen in a classroom. It happens in conversation, in your home, on your block, through the music you listen to, the shows you watch, and the people you spend time with. You're always learning. The question is, what are you learning? Because if your environment is negative, you're being educated in limitation. But if your environment is full of growth, you're being educated in elevation. See, some of you think education is about grades and degrees, but that's just a small part of it. Real education is about exposure to truth, to possibilities, to purpose. When you're in a room full of people talking about business, you start to think business. When you're around people talking about goals, you start to set some. When you're surrounded by people who dream big, you start to believe big. But when you're in a room where everyone's complaining, gossiping, or giving up, you start to shrink. That's how powerful your environment is. It's like a mirror. It reflects what you'll eventually become. You can't plant a seed in concrete and expect it to grow. You can have all the potential in the world, but if you're surrounded by the wrong soil, you'll never reach your full height. That's why some people never see their greatness, not because it's not there, but because their environment doesn't water it. And sometimes you've got to make the hard choice to move. Move from comfort to challenge, from noise to focus, from people who drain you to people who push you. That's not betrayal, that's growth. Think about it. A child raised in a house where success is expected will naturally start to see success as normal. But a child raised where giving up is the routine will start to think fail. Is just the way life goes. That's why changing your environment changes your education. You start to learn new behaviors, new standards, new definitions of what's possible. And that's how transformation begins, not just by learning facts, but by being surrounded by something that speaks life into your goals. So ask yourself, what is your environment teaching you right now? Are you learning persistence or procrastination? Are you learning discipline or distraction? Are you learning growth or excuses? Because the lessons you're absorbing daily are shaping the person you're becoming. You can't stay in a toxic space and expect to develop a healthy mindset. You can't keep feeding your spirit negativity and expect to produce positivity. That's why I tell people, be intentional about what you allow around you. Be a student of your surroundings. If your environment isn't teaching you to elevate, then you've got to find a new classroom. Sometimes that means cutting off conversations that go nowhere. Sometimes it means spending more time in the library, the gym, or around mentors who challenge you to think bigger. You don't have to wait for someone to teach you. You can choose your teachers every day by choosing your environment. Because education is not just information, it's transformation. It's about aligning yourself with spaces that force you to grow. So if you really want to change your life, don't just ask for better results, seek better surroundings. The right environment will educate your mind, discipline your habits, and expand your possibilities. When your environment changes, your life follows, and once you've learned in the right classroom, you'll never want to go back to the wrong one again. You've heard it before, but let me make it plain. If you want to change your future, you've got to change your circle. Because who you hang around determines where you're headed. You can't soar with eagles if you're still walking with pigeons. You can't grow into greatness if you're surrounded by people who are comfortable with average. Some of you are frustrated because you want success, but your circle is teaching you survival. You're trying to go to the next level, but the people closest to you are still stuck talking about yesterday. That's not hate, that's just truth. If you keep connecting with people who don't see what you see, they'll keep convincing you to settle for less than you're capable of. See, energy is contagious. Habits are contagious. Mindsets are contagious. You don't even realize it, but you start picking up the language, the attitude, the belief system of the people around you. That's why your circle matters more than your circumstances. You might not be where you want to be yet, but if you surround yourself with people who think higher, move faster, and expect more, you'll start rising too. But if you stay in circles that talk small, dream small, act small, you'll start shrinking to fit in. And I don't care how motivated you are, it's hard to climb when you're carrying people who don't want to move. You've got to understand something. Loyalty doesn't mean limitation. You can love people without letting them limit you. You can care for them, but you can't let them cage your vision. Because the truth is, some people are seasonal. They were meant to walk with you for a part of the journey, not the whole thing. And if you keep holding on to people who aren't growing, you'll start slowing down. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is grow. Because when you grow, you give others permission to grow too. Think about the people you spend the most time with. What are those conversations like? Do they build you or do they drain you? Do they challenge you to be better or do they comfort you in staying the same? Because your circle should stretch you. It should make you uncomfortable in the best way. You should be around people who make you think, who call you out, who hold you accountable, who refuse to let you settle. If everyone around you agrees with everything you do, that's not a circle, that's a cage. And let me tell you something, sometimes the right circle won't clap for you because they expect you to win. They don't celebrate mediocrity, they celebrate mastery. They don't hype you up for potential, they hold you to performance. And at first, that might sting, but it's necessary, because iron sharpens iron, not plastic. And if you're the sharpest one in your circle, it's time to find a new one. You've got to start choosing people who speak to your destiny, not your history. People who see who you're becoming, not just who you've been. Because when you're around that kind of energy, it pulls something out of you that you didn't even know was there. That's what exposure does. It upgrades your circle, and when your circle upgrades, your mindset upgrades, and when your mindset upgrades, your life upgrades. So look around, check your circle, because it's not just friendship. It's your future sitting in front of you. And if you want to see your life change, stop waiting for the right moment and start surrounding yourself with the right people. Change your circle, and you'll change your life. You've got to get out and see more. You've got to travel, experience, explore, because life was never meant to be lived in one box, one city, one mindset. There's a whole world out there, and some of you have limited your dreams simply because you've limited your view. You're making life decisions based on what's around you, not realizing there's more waiting beyond what you've seen. You think you understand success, but you've only seen one version of it. You think you know struggle, but there are people out there turning struggle into strength in ways you've never imagined. That's what exposure through experience does. It expands your vision. It redefines what's possible. See, education isn't just found in books or classrooms. It's found in moments, in experiences, in stepping outside your comfort zone. You can't learn the value of perspective sitting in the same place every day. You learn it when you meet people who don't think like you, live like you, or believe like you. When you travel, not just to see, but to understand, something happens inside you. You start connecting the dots. You start realizing that success, discipline, and growth look different everywhere, but the principles stay the same. Some of you have dreams bigger than the place you're in, but you keep trying to fit them inside the limits of your environment. You keep asking small-minded people to understand big visions. You keep waiting for permission from people who have never left their comfort zone. But you don't need permission to grow. You need exposure. You need to walk through new neighborhoods, visit new places, listen to new voices, step into rooms that make you feel unqualified, because that's where real learning happens. When you travel, when you experience more, you start to see how small your excuses are. You see people with less doing more. You see determination in faces that never had opportunity, yet they move like they're unstoppable. That's when it hits you. It's not about where you're from. It's about how far you're willing to go. Every place you visit teaches you something, not just about others, but about yourself. You start realizing what you value, what you fear, what drives you. You start to grow in wisdom, not just knowledge. And you don't even have to go across the world to explore. Sometimes exploration means going across town, visiting a new library, attending a seminar, talking to someone from a different background. The goal isn't distance, it's discovery. It's about stretching your understanding beyond what you've been taught. Because once your mind has seen more, it can't go back to less. Too many people are living trapped inside the walls of their routine. They wake up, go to the same places, talk to the same people, think the same thoughts, and wonder why life feels stuck. But when you start to explore, your spirit wakes up. You start to feel alive again. You start to get ideas, inspiration, direction. You begin to see that there's more than one path to success, more than one way to live a meaningful life. So if you feel stuck, don't quit, move. Go see something new, go learn something new, step outside what's familiar. Because every new experience adds another layer to your understanding, another spark to your fire, another reason to keep pushing. Travel doesn't just change your scenery, it changes your spirit. It opens your eyes to how big the world really is and how much more you're capable of becoming. Once you start exploring, you'll never want to live small again. Sometimes all it takes is one conversation, one connection, one moment of access to change your entire life. That's why mentorship and access matter. You can have all the hunger, all the drive, all the talent in the world, but if you're not exposed to the right people, the right rooms, the right opportunities, you'll stay stuck guessing instead of growing. There are people out there who have already walked the path you're trying to figure out, people who have already made the mistakes you're about to make, people who carry the wisdom you need to go to the next level. That's what a mentor does. They give you access to a shortcut, not to skip the work, but to skip the wasted time. See, mentorship isn't about being told what to do, it's about seeing what's possible. When you have someone ahead of you, you don't just get advice, you get perspective. They can see the mountain from a view you don't have yet. They can see dangers you can't see, shortcuts you didn't know existed, and opportunities you would have walked right past. That's the power of access, and the truth is, a lot of people miss out because their pride won't let them ask. You can't learn from someone you won't listen to. You can't get access to rooms you're too afraid to walk into. You've got to humble yourself and say, I don't know everything, because the moment you stop being teachable, you stop growing. And the moment you stop growing, you start dying. Some of you are waiting for success to find you, but success lies behind access. You've got to seek out mentors, leaders, teachers, coaches, people who have mastered what you're still learning. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to be the least experienced person in the room. That's exactly where you're supposed to be. Let me tell you something. One conversation with the right person can do more for your growth than years of guessing on your own. One mentor can open a door that your hard work alone couldn't reach. That's why you've got to put yourself where wisdom lies. Stop spending all your time with people who only remind you of your past, and start connecting with people who represent your future. When you get around someone who's already where you want to go, their habits, their mindset, their energy start to rub off on you. You start to think different, move different, expect different. That's the gift of access. But understand, mentorship isn't one-sided. It's not just about taking, it's about serving. When you find someone willing to pour into you, respect their time, respect their journey. Show them you're serious, apply what they teach you, because mentorship is a relationship built on trust and effort. They don't invest in your potential, they invest in your commitment. And for those of you who have already experienced a little success, don't forget, it's your responsibility to become that access for someone else. Someone helped you see what was possible. Someone gave you a chance. Now it's on you to do the same. That's how you keep the cycle of greatness alive. When you find mentorship, when you get access, everything changes not because life gets easier, but because your vision gets clearer. You stop walking in circles and start walking in purpose. So don't just chase success, chase wisdom. Don't just look for opportunities, look for people who carry the keys to them, because one right relationship can open 1,000 doors. Once you've seen better, you can't go back, that's the truth. Once you've been exposed to excellence, once you've tasted what it feels like to operate on a higher level, average will never satisfy you again. That's what exposure does. It ruins you for mediocrity. It changes your appetite. You can't unsee greatness once you've seen it. You can't unknow what's possible once you've lived it, even for a moment. That's why exposure is so powerful. It doesn't just open your eyes, it changes your standards. Some of you have been frustrated lately, not because you're failing, but because your soul knows there's more. You've seen something, maybe a lifestyle, a level of discipline, a level of peace, a level of success, and now the old you just doesn't fit anymore. That's what happens when your standard shifts. What used to feel comfortable now feels small. What used to excite you now feels empty. That's growth. That's your spirit saying, I've seen more, I've been more, I want more. And the worst thing you can do is try to go back to who you were before exposure. You can't fit new vision into an old mindset. When you've seen how excellence operates, you start moving differently. You start caring about the little things, your time, your habits, your focus, your circle. You stop chasing shortcuts because you understand process. You stop wasting energy on negativity because you know it costs you progress. You stop being impressed by people who only talk and start being drawn to people who execute. Exposure matures you. It teaches you to demand more, not just from the world, but from yourself. But here's the thing, once you've seen better, it's not enough to know it. You've got to become it. Some people get exposed to greatness and admire it, while others get exposed and let it ignite them. You can't just clap for other people's success, you've got to build your own. You can't just talk about what you've seen, you've got to live it. Exposure should make you hungry, not jealous. It should make you motivated, not intimidated. Because once you realize what's possible, the only question left is, what am I willing to do to reach it? And let me be real, it's uncomfortable. Growth always is. When you've seen a higher level, everything beneath it starts to irritate you. You start noticing the excuses in people's words, the laziness in your own habits, the wasted potential in your own day. That's the price of exposure awareness. You can't pretend you don't know anymore. You can't blame ignorance. Now it's about choice. Are you going to rise to meet what you've seen, or are you going to settle for what's easy? Some people get a glimpse of greatness and run back to comfort because it's safer. But if you've truly seen better, you owe it to yourself to pursue it, no matter what it costs. Don't shrink because the next level feels heavy, grow into it. Don't avoid excellence because it demands more, become the person who can handle it. That's what exposure is meant to do. It doesn't come to make you comfortable, it comes to make you capable. Once you've seen better, you can't pretend you haven't. You can't unlearn what greatness feels like. You can't unknow what purpose sounds like. And you can't go back to average once you've experienced extraordinary. So if your eyes are open now, stay awake, keep climbing, because once you've seen what's possible, the only direction left is forward.